So last weekend was the Oscars. I had this kind of like spur of the moment idea to like reflect on all the movies I've seen in the past year. All of this led to creating this video where I am giving my thoughts on all the movies I saw of the past year. I created a personal scoring system for how I would score each movie. There were 3 categories that I scored these movies on. Number 1, personal engagement. How satisfied was I with it overall? Kind of like my personal enjoyment of it, basically. Second category being storytelling. So I'm a big nerd for storytelling. I talk about it all the freaking time on this channel. What was the story that was being told, and how much did I enjoy that story? Was I satisfied with the story? And then finally, category number 3, impact. So what message was that story telling? What were kind of my thoughts leaving? Was I affected by the message of this movie, essentially? And so those 3 categories in total give it a score of 1 to 30. I'm gonna go from my least favorite movie of the year all the way to my favorite movie of the year. I'm gonna give roughly about 10 to 15 seconds of my thoughts of each movie that's not in the top 10. And then the movies that made the top 10, I'm gonna give about 30 seconds to talk about, except number 1. And so a couple things to preface with that. Number 1, if 2 movies have the same score, whichever one I show later, that means that I slightly liked this movie more. And of course, the big disclaimer, this is all my opinion. This is just how I thought when I was watching the movies. So if a movie is lower or higher, if a movie is lower or higher than you think it should be, well, please, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Maybe even give me like your top 5 or top 10 favorite movies of the past year.
While you're down there, go ahead and smash the like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already.
This is all my thoughts, just putting that disclaimer out, so please don't be upset if I have different opinions than you on a certain movie. So with all that being said, let's just dive right in. Cue the fancy jazz music. It was a decent horror movie, and I honestly don't remember it very well. Sorry. The original is one of my favorite movies of all time and my favorite Disney movie of all time. And I felt like I was watching the same movie with an animal documentary over it. I love Hugh Jackman, he's one of my favorite actors, but the pacing is kind of weird in this movie for me, and it just didn't have a big personal impact. Solid music, weird plot, decent sequel. A good sequel to a solid first movie. It's not as good as the original, but better than I thought it would be. The main 4 characters are all hilarious in this movie. Other than that, it's just a decent sequel. Honestly, one of my least favorite Marvel movies made, but the story is pretty good actually. I like the ending, and it sets up really well for Endgame. Very funny and enjoyable. Would definitely watch this one again. Extremely self-aware movie, and it's pretty funny because of that. Also a good sequel. A solid story about Tolkien's life and the creation of his story. Beautiful animation and a very well-written story. I am a super Pokemon nerd, so this one's a little bit higher than it should be probably, but the CGI is pretty good. Ryan Reynolds literally saves this movie. My brain literally exploded after watching this movie. It brought a very compelling conversation after watching this movie with the people that I did. Beautifully done tragic story of divorce. You can see the escalation of the pain and the suffering that goes with the process of divorce, and just a very compelling story because of that. Probably would be higher if I knew a little bit more about the history of the Manson murders before watching this movie. Definitely want to see this one again. And now we're in the top 10. Again, all my personal opinions. So these 10 movies are my 10 favorite movies from the past year. A really well done ending to the Skywalker saga and the new Star Wars trilogy. Probably would have been better if they weren't having to do course correction from The Last Jedi, which is also a very controversial movie. So this movie naturally was controversial because Last Jedi took one direction, and so they flipped it and did another direction in episode 9. Otherwise, a very good movie. Some weird plot points that, because of that course correction, just were weird. But overall, I thought it was a good story, and it was an enjoyable end to a very big saga of Star Wars. An inspirational story of Mr. Rogers and the impact that he had on the main character Lloyd's life. It really captures the ideology and the beliefs that Mr. Rogers had and the way he just impacted and touched millions of children growing up, including me. Just a beautifully done story of Mr. Rogers. I had very different expectations going into this movie. I thought it was gonna just be this raunchy comedy about this boy and his imaginary friend Hitler. And there was some of that in there, but it was far different from what I expected it to be. It just tells this impeccable story of this boy who's coming of age during World War II inside of Germany. And his awareness to question his thoughts on what he's been told is true, it just brings this very compelling questioning of what you've been raised on and your beliefs. And it's just very compelling and very beautifully done. Tom Holland is just incredible. He's one of my favorite actors. I just really resonate with his character of Spider-Man. It's a solid movie post Endgame and post Thanos. I think it's a really good movie that shows the consequences of that and what it looks like to move forward now that Thanos is done and now that the movie Endgame is over. And it's a great coming of age story of Peter Parker, who not only is trying to step in as the next Iron Man, but learns that he is the next Peter Parker. Like, he just basically learns to step up, and it's just a really good coming of age story of Spider-Man. This movie shows the great faith that Harriet had just to do what she believed in as she was going through the suffering of slavery and all the pain that she dealt with in her life. And it just shows a very compelling way of her faith and just the way she proclaimed that. It's a great story about her gaining freedom, and it just shows the real involvement of Harriet during the Underground Railroad. And then it also just sparks a really good conversation about the terrible past of American history that is slavery. Harriet's just a really good movie. It's an unexpected added sequel to an already incredible trilogy that Pixar made. With the end of the Andy era in Toy Story, this movie very much focuses on the character that is Woody, ending his character arc really well and very beautifully done. Brings a theme of moving on, which really resonated with me personally, and a beautiful and emotional end to an incredible character that we all grew up with, that being Woody. An incredible ending to DreamWorks' best trilogy, in my opinion. The animation in this movie is just incredible to watch and to look at. It's just so beautiful. And it just tells this incredible story of this family of humans and dragons that have been together for so long. Just a very compelling story of how the dragons and humans live together and how they can move on. And it just really resonated with me personally in how I was getting ready to leave college. Just the way this trilogy ends is incredible and it's beautifully done. Good job, DreamWorks. It's an incredible war story that feels so real and is so engaging to watch. You're on the edge of your seat the entire time watching this movie. It adds a sense of realism with it in the fact that this movie literally looks like it's all shot in one take. It just adds a very big sense of realism to the movie because you are just following these two guys and what their mission essentially is during this movie. It just leaves you on the edge of your seat because you feel very uncomfortable. You never know what's going to actually happen. It's incredible. It's very well done and a very good story. Overall, might be my favorite war movie of all time. It's just very well done and very good. This is a spectacular ending to the Infinity Saga. It is incredible. An entire decade of superhero movies in the Marvel Universe just ends incredibly well and brings everything together so well. There is incredible fan service in this movie. I literally jumped out of my seat during parts of this movie. It is so entertaining, it is so engaging, and it just has a very good payoff to this decade of heroes that people have grown up with. And yeah, I'm just excited to see where the Marvel Universe is gonna go now that this saga of Avengers is over. Just very well done, very good end to this decade of Marvel movies. But it's only number 2. I did not think that a movie could pass Avengers Endgame this year. I thought it was not going to be topped this year. It was just so good. But there is one movie that beats it. And at number 1 that tops everything else this year, it's The Joker. Just an incredible, tragic Oedipus story of this super complex and iconic character that is the Joker. It is just so well done. It is extremely dark. It is extremely intense to watch, and you literally see the fall of a man named Arthur. You literally are just watching this man crumble to pieces, and it's so tragic to watch, but it's so engaging, and it tells that story so well. It really just puts you in the mind of somebody who is marginalized, somebody who is forgotten, and like many of us, like all of us really, a broken man that you just see slowly break throughout the entire movie, with tragedy after tragedy after tragedy happening to the point that he snaps and becomes the Joker. It's just a very compelling story in that way, and that's why I really like it. Not because of this this darkness of the entire movie, but just the way I really like storytelling, and just the way it tells that story is incredible. The movie left me so convicted and so in my thoughts about humanity, really. It's really a work of art. That's really the best way to put it. And so yeah, that's my top 10 movies. That's my thoughts on all the movies I've seen before going into the Oscars this year. Just wanted to get all my thoughts out on these movies. Overall, I liked a lot of the movies. They were all very good. I would recommend seeing any movie that you want to see and form your own opinions, and let me know what you think of my list, and maybe even leave like your own top 10 list from the past year. What were some of your favorite movies of this year? This is my personal thoughts. Again, this is my opinions. These were my favorite movies of the year. Everybody takes away different things from movies, and that's kind of the beauty of storytelling and of movies, is everybody can discuss and come away with different ideas that they think about movies, and that's the beauty of art. Yeah, that's my thoughts on the movies I've seen of the past year, and I'm really excited for the Oscars, and I'm really excited to see the movies that come out, and hopefully I'll do this again next year before the Oscars and just get all my thoughts out on the movies of the next year. Yeah, so with that, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys liked it. And if you did, please leave a like. Tell me your thoughts again about your favorite movies from this year. Yeah, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Again, we are so close to 100. I think I'm 3 subscribers away. 3 subscribers away from 100. And so I'm just very thankful for you guys watching this. And with that, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna go watch the Oscars. Bye, Felicias. Yeet, yeet, yeet.